Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Oh my god. Is this actually live? I don't even know. Can anyone fucking hear me? Is it? Can anyone hear me? Are we live? Hey, buddy. Is there anyone here? Is there anyone here? Post in the chat if you can hear me. Okie dokie, we're getting there. Okay. Alright, so just edit the post, let people know to, like... Alright. We're here. We can hear me. We're getting there. Okay. We got that. Alright. Finally, I'm sorry about the horrible delay there, everyone. My previous computer that I used for live streams, like a while ago, when the last Q&A and then the those brief Twitch running streams, that died a while ago, so I'm on a new computer, and I thought that I'd gotten my settings for this all sorted in advance. Perhaps not, because it's quite complex. I know what'll ease the tension a little bit though, is a little guy, a little man who's so happy to be here. This is where I'll find out how long the stream delay is when everyone in the chat starts shouting about cats. There he is. Okay, there's the delay. Bit of a delay, that's fine. This is Frog. I don't know if he was on any of the previous live streams. It's been a very long time. He's a good little guy. He's a middleman. He's a little fella. Weird little missing toe on this foot, fused toes on this one, hence Frog. He's a little guy. And he goes back to his cat tail, which is not quite showing up in the... Let me just adjust that a little bit. See if that gets the cat tower in there. There we go. That's a bit better. Nice. Alright. Hello. Mistholme, the podcast that is over. We have survived. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for those who've supported me. It's been a wild ride. Rigmarole, I don't know. I feel like I might be a bigger fan on a, but it's probably close. That is fair. Yeah. Oh, he is a bit of a bitey fella sometimes. I'm being assaulted. Jeez, buddy. Calm down, dude. Right. Yeah, Mistholme. It's done. I survived. We survived. Some of the characters survived. I think I made this joke last time about Walt, but yeah. Let's get straight to the questions that I've got here. And we'll... people can type in the chat if they have questions as well, general questions and stuff. But yeah, I'll just start reading these questions because we're already quite a bit behind schedule. So let's go. Let's have a look through. So we'll be able to see any more Mistholme related content in the future. Yeah, I'm planning on that. I'm planning on that being a thing, that I might keep writing some some more like exhibit stories and stuff, or some extra stuff. Got plans. It's time to step away from the museum for a little while. But if I have ideas, I have a notion that I could be doing like more exhibit stories on just for patrons and that sort of thing, but that is a well down the road thing. It's time to give the Mistholme setting a rest for a little bit. Let's jump around for these. So, Beast says that it wonders what its real name is. No, I never really... Do I have a real name for a beast? Not really. I think that it only has a name because someone gave it a name. It just kind of doesn't need a name otherwise for itself, but it has a name because of the way that it relates to other, like, people. First the man and then the guide. Up until that point, it didn't need a name. and that is, in a way it was kind of not corrupted but changed definitely by having this name given to us and having this relationship with these relationships with these people. It's like how a cat or a dog can know to respond to its name, but it doesn't really know what a name is necessarily. So yeah, I think that giving it a name changed it in a way. I don't think that it has a name other than the ones that it's been given. A guy about how I feel about having a physical body depends on the body. If it was like a meat body, it would probably be a little grossed out by that. Mechanical, it would probably get up to horrible mischief immediately. I can, imagine the guy. There were definitely versions of the show where there could have been like when I say versions of the show, like there's like timelines where I went down a different path, like with the what do you call it, the retrieval expedition reports and stuff. I mentioned it being in drones and stuff, and I was definitely thinking of like the big like bomb disposal like robot, or like the one they put through the portals in Stargate. I forget what those are called, but just like a kind of a bulky robot body. And there's definitely a something to explore there with how it feels about that and how what the story opportunities that presents. But it just kind of wasn't the direction that I wound up going in, and it kind of would have been its own story direction in and of itself. Would have had to like give that its appropriate amount of attention and time in the show of how the guide feels about that, the hijinks and stuff. So like maybe it's the maybe that's fodder for not a spin-off but like a fan fiction or something, or maybe I'll write something about it. But yeah, I just what was the actual question? I've been talking for a while. Yeah, how would it feel? It would feel like everything with the guide. It would have such complicated feelings about it, but it would probably have a lot of fun with it as well. Does guide prefer being called guide or Mistholme? That is another name for the guide would have chosen. Maybe down the line. Again, that would be its own focus, its own story unto itself if I wanted to do that. But yeah, I think that it mostly prefers being called guide. It is complicated, like everything else. It is a complicated thing that its name is Mistholme. It has come to terms with that by season 6. You can kind of see in places like how it gives its name to the man in their encounter, or how it refers to itself as like, I am the Mistholme Museum. Like it understands and accepts that, but all of the people who care about it and who, well, at plus with the exception of the Beast, the staff who care about it and stuff call it the guide, and that is the early association it has and it cares for it, that name a lot. Is D from season 1 at 3 head of research? That is a fun thing. Yeah, that is what the intention there. I will admit that was not something that I had initially planned. And then someone this is the only time I've done this, but someone in one of the places where people talk about the show, probably the Discord, I don't know, had the idea. It's like, oh, what if the D is the head of research? Because it seems, and I'm just like, you know what, yoink, totally. I would never change anything major of the show based on fan theories or anything. I don't read fan theories for the most part. I don't read fan fiction or anything, partly to avoid ever having that be a thing, but someone just pointed that out and it's just like, you know what, that is small. That doesn't change anything. I wasn't going to like go into the head of research's like what her name is or what her life outside the museum was like too much. And then it was just like, what if it's the same character? I'm like, you know what, slot that in. Sure. That is fine. That fits in just fine, absolutely. Let's see. Was it intentional to leave the Clockwork Mother so open-ended? And why did she only get a throwaway line? That is fair. Definitely intended to leave it open-ended because Um, I mean, I don't know. You know, the ending that storyline happens in two ways. Like or three ways, I suppose. It's like the Clockwork Girl, her daughter wakes up, or the Clockwork Girl like gets broken somehow permanently, or just or the Clockwork Mother gets broken, and it's like there's I could never really find anything interesting in that. There was definitely a version of events where the Clockwork Mother died or was destroyed. Like when I was writing season 5, I want to say there was maybe a version where the mother and the beast like did like a mutual kill on each other or something like that. They both wound up dead. I obviously didn't go in that direction at all. But the way that story would then continue would be that the other Clockwork Mother, the one that we lost track of before the show began, would turn up and of course have a voice and stuff, and there would be some really fertile ground for like the guide having this identical person who is not the person that it's gone through all of this stuff with, and there would be but there's no version of events I think where I would write the Clockwork Girl waking up, because I think that would be boring. I think that would just be that's the end of the story. Cool, yeah, that's it. Like I don't know, like it's more interesting to leave it open ended that maybe someday the Clockwork Girl will wake up, the Clockwork Daughter, whatever I want to calling her more consistently, and maybe there's some ground there for the Clockwork Mother to be like, oh, I now have my daughter back and I won't work the museum, or maybe I'll continue to It was just never interesting to me. And as for why the Clockwork Mother doesn't really turn up much in the final episode, other than a throwaway line, I will grant that is not the most satisfying for a character that means so much. But the last episode was very stuffed. It was like there was a lot going on already. There was wrapping up so much stuff. There wasn't really anything to do with the Clockwork Mother other than say, yeah, she's doing fine. And anything more than I think mentioned, I tried to figure out how I would incorporate the Clockwork Mother, and I just kind of felt in the end that anything more than being like, oh yeah, the mother's here, she's doing her job, would feel like, I guess, fan servicey, or like it was crammed in because I'm already touching base with almost everyone else in some way or another, with everyone else who's still around, really. And to have like more than that would feel more just perfunctory than just mentioning that she's okay. To have her turn up and just be like, hey everyone, it's the Clockwork Mother, would feel like it would feel similar to like when a fan favorite character leaves a show and then comes back for the 200th episode, and it's like, hey everyone, Colonel O'Neill's back. Yeah, let's keep with the Star Wars, the Stargate references. I just having just a mention of her felt less frustrating, I guess, I would say, yeah. But yeah, I totally get, yeah. Will we ever hear the story of the Crystal Skull? Yeah, okay, so the Crystal Skull, it's a similar thing with the Clockwork Daughter, where there's no version of that story I could write that would be worth the build-up for a start. Like I've mentioned, it is just a running joke at this point that it never gets resolved. And to actually resolve it I don't think that I could ever write anything that would be like, oh, I'm so glad that we've, I guess, not like ruined, like done away with the joke that we never hear what's going on with the Crystal Skull. I don't think that there is a story that I would write that would be worth having that running joke be done with. I get it. But I did have an idea that ultimately I couldn't find a compelling way to incorporate, or at least not a compelling, but a way to incorporate that didn't feel like I was just answering the question that everyone was asking, was that part of the Crystal Skull's power, its alternatural nature, is that it cannot be explained. That you start trying to explain it, or you get interested in it, and something happens to distract you. And I think some people actually did suggest that maybe that is actually the thing about the Crystal Skull, is that it can never be explained because something will always interrupt you. And yeah, that was something that I had tried to find a way to incorporate and ultimately not been able to because just for the internal logic that if I start explaining that that's how it works, in universe, I have to be interrupted. Even if the guide starts to be like, oh yes, the crystal skull, the thing about this is that if you ever try to explain the story of it, you get interrupted before you can explain it. It would have to be interrupted by its own internal, the internal logic of the story would mean it would get interrupted before it could say that. So yeah, if you like that, more or less can still be canon. There's just no, because of the way that the story is, like the exhibits and stuff are diegetic. It's not an external omnipotent narrator. There was no way for me to actually explain this thing is inexplicable in universe. I am just going to double check that I'm not missing anything. I think got me stop listening. You can't hurt it. Yeah, I know. I did feel like bad, like trying to figure out how to kill the mother, and then be like, no, actually, this isn't the way the story goes. Yeah. That Aspen Rant, you've actually exactly hit on it. Yeah, like the idea that the story can't be told. Yeah, it is very funny, but there's no way to incorporate that diegetically. All right, I'll just keep looking at the Discord questions for now, and then there's so other social medias and stuff. But yeah, from fan art I've seen, what character is most accurate to my vision? I don't. It's like there's lovely fan art out there. I don't know that any of them could be because I don't picture the characters much, to be honest. I don't have much of an idea of what the characters look like in my head. And like that, yeah, that is probably frustrating, but like even when I read books and stuff, I usually find that I don't really picture the characters much. And honestly, when characters are described quite a bit in anything other than like general details, I find it distracting because I don't actually tend to have much of a picture of what people look like. And I can picture things in my head. I don't have I have that sense of being able to picture things in my head, but I just don't do that for characters. Yeah, the guide having a physical form and stuff, like an audio tour guide. Yeah, look, people have always been like drawing the guide as like a little audio guide that you get at a museum, and that totally makes sense because like for narrative reasons it was far more convenient at first convenient and then crucial that it was a download thing, where you would download it onto your phone so it could be downloaded into different places, but that's not too compelling. Like you can't just like, yeah, this is my fan art of of one of my favorite characters. It's a mobile phone with an app. So yeah, I totally get people who imagine it as or depict it as an audio tour guide box thing from a museum. But yeah, I guess there was one from a while ago of Eagle that I quite liked. I think someone drew a bunch of like character stuff of Eagle, where he's like crouching in front of a jackalope, like, oh my god. And I like that because I like that design where it didn't look anything like Kel, which is fine and kind of funny to be like show Kel as just like, hey, the people are imagining you as sexy. But him looking like a kind of a protagonist or kind of like really good looking cool best friend vibe, whatever, is really perfect for that character because the character always existed to die. To an extent, like when I asked Kel to be in the show, like I was just like, hey Kel, I'd like you to be in the show, and he was like, oh, am I playing a horrible fucked little monster? And I'm just like, no Kel, you are playing like a good guy. You're playing a character who I really want the audience to like. I think you have a very easy charisma and very trustworthy vibe that people really like. And he was like, oh my god, that's really nice of you, Dom. And then I said, and then at the end of the season he fucking dies, because that is the relationship that me and Kel have. So yeah, I think him being like, yeah, good looking protagonist vibe for the guy who is doomed to die at the end of his season, yeah, that fits somehow for me. Feel free to put questions in the chat on YouTube as well, because yeah, there's another place. If you didn't have questions preloaded, you can put them in the live as well. That's totally fine. It was not Eagle. Written with the intention of giving guide. DIDI, right? It's kind of that. It's kind of a similar vibe of having like the system vibes. That I didn't really specifically go in like trying to make it like a dissociative thing. A lot of the stuff with Mistholme, the character, like the guide, and also like other characters like the man with the voice and all the stuff with the beast and stuff. I was always happy to let it be something more than what it was written as, but I was never trying, with some exceptions. There was definitely some stuff where I was like writing the guide to be like, yeah, this is kind of my autism vibes coming through. This is what I am writing this not as an allegory, but as definitely representation of that stuff. And then there's like stuff with the man and queer identities and stuff like that, but not just that. It's not just a plural identity thing. It's not just dissociative trauma or anything. It's in universe. It is that the guide is a machine, is an artificial intelligence, and has subroutines and has like a little program inside of itself that is kicking in that it didn't even know it had, because it is a combination AI and alternatural thing. So it doesn't know its own form because it shouldn't exist in its current form. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it just happens. So yeah, it was not like intended. Well, it was. I knew when I was writing it that it would come across, that it could come across that way, and that's totally cool. But it was not like I am writing an allegory for dissociative trauma. It was this can be read that way. Yeah. Let's drill down. Any plot lines you've wrote and came up with that decided to scrap? Plot lines that decided to scrap. I mean, I've already mentioned that. Yeah, when I was trying to figure out where season 5 was going, that there might have been a version of that where the Beast and Mother died and that sort of thing. There was also like some people have like semi-jokingly, I think, hypothesized about evil alternate guides. There was definitely I was trying in early periods of writing. Let's start from the top on that. So the stuff with the time travel in season 6, that was something that I had an idea for from season 2. Season 2 with with Brooks's body on the ground, and turning out the man was the one on the tour in season 2, and the stuff with Brooks has this phone with headphones. So in season 2, partly around that time, I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not the thing that was talking to Brooks through his phone, I went back and forth on whether that was the man or an alternate guide. And I was like, in the writing of season 3 and so on, when I was having it so that the guide can split into different locations and stuff because of the antenna, it can be in multiple locations at once. When I was writing that, and I knew that I wanted there to be a time travel element to it. I really didn't know if I held off on doing any time travel stuff for like 4 seasons after that point, because I was like, I can't, this is so complicated. It's going to be so difficult to have make sense, especially in an audio only format. How do you do time travel and time loops and all that sort of stuff? And in the end, I didn't think that I could pull it off. And in the end, I decided I could, and I did it in season 6 with like all of the stuff with Amina and and like I was leading in it. I was leading in that direction. because I knew that I wanted the place on the other side of the security glassway to be like Earth's future already. Like I'd known that, but that was only semi-related to the time travel stuff. So yeah, there was a version of the person who was talking to Officer Brooks, who was an alternate version of the guide, who had somehow gotten separated from the whole, that separated from the rest of the guide, and had gone through and had gone through some stuff and had let the bad things change it for the worse in a way that the guide never did. And like the guide was always changing, and it was going through bad stuff. And this was an alternate version, cut off from the rest of the guide, who let let its trauma, I guess, or not even trauma necessarily, but let itself become worse instead of powering through. And so due to some time travel shenanigans, and it got cut off from the rest of the stuff, it wound up either working for the man or being an alternate evil version of the guide and manipulating things. And I didn't go in that direction because, dear God, it would have been complicated. It would have been so complicated. And I wound up using the concept of the alternate set cut-off guides in season 6, when the box gets disconnected and you have the conversation with the other guide. But it just wound up being a semi-comedy thing and a semi-like plot utility thing of why the guide isn't everywhere, but we're still able to hear what happens to research after she ceases to exist and stuff. So yeah, that was a big one that was like kind of went back and forth on whether or not that was going to be a thing. Yeah. That was the biggest one, definitely, that got changed. There was also, like, when I was writing season 6, there was maybe a version I was writing where where Astrid needed to this was the whole thing, actually, where Astrid needed to get to the wish engine to complete her wish, like where there was an element of the wish that she'd made at the end of season 3, where it was open-ended, and it's just like now I have to get back into the museum to wish the final part of my wish that makes all of this possible, and like that they would be escorting her through the museum, and that would coincide with when the Queen and their soldiers attacked, and Astrid would be killed, and it would be ambiguous whether or not that might be what causes the bad future, is that the wish not being complete breaks reality somehow. I just didn't go in that direction, apart from anything else, because it was already a very complicated season, and in the end, it was just better to have the storylines kind of segmented a little bit, kind of I don't know, like an episodic thing. You know, we start out with the stuff on the other side of the glassway, and then we go to the beast, and then we go to the invasion, and it's all kind of like coalescing towards the end. So there's lots of things that kind of went up on the cutting room floor. There's definitely story ideas that just never went anywhere because I couldn't find a good hook for it as well. But yeah, what does recording an episode look like? Especially, so some recording setups for other people, we having all the actors like recording together and stuff. I record separately, even with the people who are in Brisbane with me, who I'm sitting across the table from them, directing them. I'll be feeding them the other parts of their conversations, but I'll be recording them separately. I'll just be recording one person at a time and then cutting it together in post. So if it like people's it sounds really organic, it sounds like they're actually having a conversation with each other, thank you, because they are super not. I have not met more than at this point with the number of characters in this of actors in this show. I have not met more cast members than I have met. The only cast members I've met are Zane, who played Retrieval, Liz, who plays Restoration, Ray, who plays Research, and Kel, who played Eagle. The others, Ben and Lena, are Australian, but I've never met them. Hero lives in, I think, Wales, and David, Jingle, Actually, no, David lives in England as well. He lives in like Liverpool or something. No, it's not Liverpool. Anyway, and yeah, Jingle and Jenna Rose both are American. So yeah, it's very segmented. The recording. I just record. Zane has some good microphones, so I go over to their apartment usually to record my dialogue mostly in bulk, and then I'll like organize with the actors one by one when they can come in, and yeah, record with them. Get a couple of run through their entire scenes and stuff. Record for as much as is necessary, or their folds can withstand, and then yeah, that'll last for a few episodes, and then I get them back in, or I got them back in because it's done. Any exhibits you didn't anticipate being as popular as... Oh, I could never anticipate any one being popular. Yeah. I knew that the Changeling would strike a chord because that was written from a very real place. Probably mentioned that on a previous one, but I wrote the Changeling story because I knew that there were ideas that changelings were just like neurodiverse children or whatever who were like, oh yeah, it's been taken by the fairy. Like that was a real thing that could happen, or that may have happened. Historiography or whatever being what it is. But yeah, so I am on the autism spectrum as well. I got diagnosed a few years ago now, but I was also misdiagnosed as not being autistic when I was young. But it was like an open, yeah, we think that was probably wrong for most of my life, and I got the diagnosis. I sorted out as an adult just to have some like explanation for my whole deal, just to have some certainty and all that. And when I got home from like one of the interviews and stuff with the therapist and stuff, I started writing that story because it was just kind of how I was feeling, like very complicated, ultimately positive, but very complicated. So yeah, I knew that one would probably strike a chord because it was very real. Other than that, yeah, I could never. I don't know at this point. Increasingly, I have no idea if anything I'm writing is good. I have no sense of my own works, if it's good, if it's working or not. I just write it and like edit it as much as I think I can, but I have no idea at this point. So yeah, I did think that this story in the final episodes about the comic book and the girl who can see angles and stuff that aren't there, I did think that was quite strong. I did think that was a good one, and I thought that I'll save that one for the last episode because like thematically there's some, it feels like it might connect a little bit. And also just because I thought that I always wanted to make sure that even if the final season, its pacing needed to not have exhibit stories as much towards the end, I wanted to have a story, an exhibit in the final episode, just to make sure that it didn't like stop being an anthology show as well. And that was where part of the reason that the guide, is the way that it's fighting back against the Fae in that final, like in the invasion storyline, was to have something like the storytelling aspect still in there, something like the exhibits. It's just that the guide is telling stories to the Fae, and there was going to be more of that, and then it was just too much. Yeah, that'd be lovely, like a page or two even. Yeah, like drawing the comic book would be so cool. And that was definitely one where it was just like, I hope that I see what this looks like. I hope I see what people depict this as, because like the comic book, I think that comic book was a patron requested, because I had the ability for people to pledged a certain amount to choose exhibits. I think a comic book was one of those. And I was like trying to find an interesting hook for that, and then I was just like, is it a comic book that comes true? No, there are plenty of stories about that. What is it? And then I was like, are the characters in the comic book alive? And then yeah, like the idea of using the comic book to explain, like it's these parents trying to explain away their daughter's way of seeing the world, where like she's outside of the bounds of the borders of the comic and looking in. Like I thought that was pretty compelling. That is Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I can't draw, so I love any fan art because I can't draw for the life of me. Cannot draw. Uh, any scenes that were difficult or scrapped. I mean, like there's been some things that were scrapped. Not really scenes, not specifically for the most part, just like storylines that have changed in a way. Because I'm just kind of when I was working out the direction of the final season in particular, there were lots of different directions it could have gone. Um, Actually, there was an idea I had. Like there was a not really much remembered one exhibit about a guy in prison, and there was a book delivered to him that would respond to his messages, and then when he confesses to the book, like it turns out it's like quantum entangled with another book that is then handed in as like his confession. And there was an idea in there that I think it was like that there was like a repeated mention of Tuesday, like that it was being the events that like, he was always getting the book on Tuesday. I don't even remember. And there was an idea I had that oh, this is in some way related to the Norse god Tyr. It's like, oh yeah, it's because it's Thursday, or like something like that. And then I just didn't wind up doing. I was just like, oh, maybe there's something like and introducing like that sort of angle. And then that was right around the time I was like, no, actually, the story needs to stop getting bigger. It needs to become like we have reached the outer limits. We need to focus in now. We need to bring this into focus and stop just adding new shit and new shit. So yeah, I didn't end up going anywhere with that. You missed the guide. Will there be another story? Look, yeah, maybe. I mean, like, I'm trying to write other things. It's difficult at the moment because when I started writing Mistholme, and for the first couple of years, I was doing like sporadic work in like the theatre because that's my background. At the time I was doing backstage work, like technical stuff, and I was also doing occasionally editing other people's podcasts. So I had a lot of extra time on my hands. Now I work 5 days a week, and it's a very fulfilling job. I help support people with autism actually, but I have so much less time to write, and I have so much. Even on the days when I'm not working that much, it's like it still occupies my mind. So writing is harder now. So yeah, I'm trying to write some other projects at the moment that I might mention later. I had, the ending of the story of the show with Amina taking away a copy of the guide. That is like a very much maybe we'll follow this thread, or maybe it's just and the adventure continues thing. But the idea of Amina and the guide opening an alternatural detective agency is just such a fun, compelling idea that I'm like, I should do that at some point, but I don't know how to write that sort of story for a start, and also it's time for a break from Mistholme and from yeah, maybe down the line. But yeah, I do intend to write some exhibit stories when I have good ideas that I can put on the Patreon. Let's just still use the Mistholme Tumblr account? Probably. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now that the show has ended, and I want to move on to other projects and stuff. Maybe I need to create a Dom Guilfoyle account, or maybe I just change the name of it. I don't know. Any favourite I've not read any fanfic, I'm sorry. Fan arts, I mean that, yeah, like I said, that one of Eagle is really nice. I really like, there's lots of different versions people have done of the guide, that every single one of them is different, and that's always amazing. Someone posted on Tumblr actually this morning. They've, I think, crocheted, or I don't know what. Maybe knitted. I don't know. The guide as well, and it's so cute. I won't mention any other specific ones, but like yeah, every version of the guide that I've seen, I've loved. Did I get tired of voicing Stranger? No. I mean, I get tired of trying to do that accent because I know it's like that accent. It's vaguely Welsh, but also it's just fairy. It's like if I told a Welsh person I was supposed to be a Welsh accent, they'd be outraged, I'm sure. But it's fine because it's just a fairy. It's not a real accent. It's fine. I didn't get tired of that because it was always fun being a complete bastard. It's a fun vibe sometimes. I did get tired of doing the Beast voice because that was I've said this before. this is how I do the Beast voice, which is horrible, and I regret everything. Um, the guide doing karaoke for at least 4 seasons. The guide and Amina doing karaoke is inevitable. They would do that. Yeah, that is such a pure and absolutely accurate idea. What music would Guide enjoy listening to? I mean, I don't know why, but Simon and Garfunkel just popped straight into my head. I think that Guide would like some like lyrically nice and somewhat complex, but yeah, yeah. I think that for some reason that is what pops into my head. Some Simon and Garfunkel, some Paul Simon, that sort of vibe. Um, any if you can change one thing about the show. Oh, if I could change one thing about the show, the name. I've made more and more jokes about this, but the name's too long. I've known that for a while. I mean, when I'm embarrassed to tell people the name of the show because it's too long and it's a bit twee. It's yeah, the name was a mistake. I mean, it's not a mistake. I don't know. The name tells you a lot about what the show was to an extent because the show kind of stopped being quite so much like a oh yes you write down your feedback for the museum on a leaf and feed it to a dog, that kind of thing. It stopped being as much of a thing. But early on, definitely the idea of like, oh, mystery, morbidity, mortality, the long words and the alliteration, it fit, but it is too long. It's a bit cringy. I don't know. The name is iconic, positive and negative. It's such a difficult thing. Yeah, I know. It's like it is positives, but after 6 seasons of seeing people be like, how do I like tag the name, like SEO wise? Not that I really give a shit about SEO. Like having 8 words in a name and having the primary most important one not be a real word. I know it's just. I know we love to. I know. I probably wouldn't actually change the name. There is a reason that the name has remained the Mistholme Museum. Like, well, it's I kind of shortened it down to the Mistholme Museum, in part for ease and in part so that I could actually make cover art that looked remotely good. The Mistholme Museum, you can have that on a cover and have it be legible. You can't have 8 words and have it be legible. In a Muppet remake, who'll be the one human? I mean, it's obviously Retrieval. Retrieval just trying to Retrieval, or like maybe if we want to include patronage actually, because like the joke that I have in my head about patronage is the reason that we never meet patronage is that because it's really his version of the story is really boring. He is a head of department in a museum. He is not doing all of this magical bullshit, and honestly he tries to keep away from that because he just wants to sell tickets and work with guests and make sure that the catering supplies and stuff come in. Um, so yeah, and maybe one of those two, the ones who really would just rather all of this supernatural shit stop. It's obviously those two. Um, did I mean parental trauma to be such an overarching plot? Parental trauma of losing a child, not being able to live up to them. Yeah, look, early on, parental trauma was a big thing because I was really in the fairy tale vibes. Like the early stories, like I was either twisting existing fairy tales or fairy tale like stories or real life stuff, and yeah, and a lot of fairy tales involve the deaths of, or horrible things happening to children. Um, and it's like looking back on that, I'm like, what a first impression. The first 3 episodes all involve children dying. Uh, and the yeah, and from that point, it's not so much that it became like, oh, I am writing a story about parental trauma. Um, and of course, the guide's backstory is, of course, inspired by Pinocchio as well. So, parental trauma going the other way and stuff. Um, it is just, it started out as just like, this is one of the core tropes of a lot of old fairy tales. And then once that's in the show, that's part of the show's DNA. And because the guide has all this parental stuff, it kind of makes sense to have the other side of things. The queen and the man with the voice having some parental stuff going on there. The beast having a complicated relationship with both the guide and with like parental trauma and like the first friends that they ever had and that sort of thing. There's a very deep connection there. And then getting towards in the final season, like the fear of the world getting worse and stuff, and the apocalypse and all that, like ties into that fear that you want to leave the world better than it was for whoever you're leaving behind. That all kind of ties together, and it's not so much that I wanted to make a show about parental trauma or that sort of thing. It's that I started the show with some parental and child death stuff going on, and then it's just good writing to have that be thematically relevant going forward. It's just good, right? Oh, I think, good writing to have the concepts and themes that you introduce in those first 3 episodes become relevant going forward. So yeah, it just kind of was organic that was the direction a lot of the show went. And of course, having the another reason that the comic book story winds up in the final episode is to end where we begin to a degree like that. That is another element that I was like, yeah, this is kind of fitting to have the disappearing child happen in the final episode. And people, I think that it's interesting. This is kind of a tangent, but it's always interesting. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know what I'm writing is good. I really thought that the fairy story in that first episode was really good, and everything I see online is, oh yes, power through that first episode. It's really not good. I don't know. I really liked that story when I wrote it. Looking back, maybe it's not the best. It's certainly, I've got better stories that I've written since, I'm sure. But yeah, that's just one of those things where I have no idea the quality of my writing at all. And definitely I moved away from inspiring it from real events quite so much, because that was obviously based on the Cottingley fairies, yeah. It was like I didn't have as much real life stories. Any advice for plotting out a fiction podcast? My advice, no, at the very least, have like a season written before you start recording anything. I am breaking that rule myself with something that I'm trying to write at the moment, but that's just because I need to start writing or I'll go insane. Like, at the very least, you don't have to stick to what you actually write, but I think have something plotted out. Know where you're going. Plotting out a fiction podcast. Let the ideas change. Don't be stuck to them too thoroughly either. It's really important that you don't you're not too clutching white knuckled onto this one idea that you really think is great, and then it just winds up hamstringing the actual overall project. So yeah, that would be my advice. Have a plan and be willing to let that change. Yeah, the fairies being in the first episode and then being so important going forward, that's also just thematically nice. Sally meant to be a parallel to the Clockwork Mother and Daughter, with both parents. Maybe. I mean, it's also just. I'll read it out. Is Sally meant to be a parallel to the Clockwork Mother and Daughter, with both parents waiting to potentially get their daughter back, but unable in the time we had? Not a conscious one. Again, it's just the fairy tale tropes of having parental trauma and children dying and stuff. I kind of want the vibe with that story is partly superhero story gone wrong. It's a superhero origin story, but actually no, it's horrible to wake up with superpowers. But also, there's kind of that fairy tale vibe as well. So it's kind of not so much directly paralleling The Clockwork Mother, so much as it is that they are both my takes on fairy tale vibes. Um, let's move on to questions. How well equipped is the retrieval department? How advanced is their equipment? Do they have combat vehicles? Do these update weapons and equipment? So, like, the retrieval department is, like, definitely a hodgepodge of equipment. Oh, I think I hear it. There he is. Sophie. Zephyr. You can come in. Hold on, let's see if you're on camera. Hey boy. Hey boy. It's dog. It's dog time. Nope. Okay, bye. He's gone. Alright. Where was I? Yeah. I mean, the important thing to remember about retrieval is that they did not, like sometimes they have weapons and stuff on the dangerous missions, but they're also not like the museum's. They're not supposed to be the museum's security necessarily, and the jobs that they're doing in season 4 onwards and stuff, like they are not necessarily the right people for that job, but they're doing their best. I don't know. Yeah. So equipment wise, they have some fancy tech and that sort of thing. I don't know. I like to keep. I thought they just keep that vague as well. Yeah. Yeah, it's not really something I've thought about too much. They have some advanced technology, but also some like old technology that works better around the old natural. There's stuff like in the video game Control. There's like details in that about how they can only use like technology that was developed before like a certain year or something, because that it breaks in the setting that they're in. So maybe there's some stuff like that, but it's not really something I've thought about too much. Question: do you know exactly how much I love your work? This much, I think, is how much you love my work. Yeah, that seems about right. Where is Twitter? Because it's still called Twitter, which I don't use anymore. And maybe using Twitter would have been good for my SEO or whatever. But I just hate it so much. Nope, that's nothing on there. Good. Yeah, sorry. So the dog is very attached to my partner. He is my partner's dog, and he is just the most loving and attached to them. So follows them wherever they go. Oh, more than that. Okay, interesting. We can zero this in on this. Will the guide be back for more tours of the museum? Yeah, that's something. That is the plan. The idea is that I'll write some more, but I'm just trying to work on other stuff. Where else would that? Oh right, Patreon. Let's check if there's more questions on Patreon. I think if you guys have any more questions, feel free to write them in the YouTube chat. But yeah, I think we might be on to. Alright, how would the guy feel like? Yeah. Oh no, these are ones that we already posted in the Discord. Yeah. Yeah, no worries. Okay. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask. Yeah. I'm working on some other stuff. I am still working on Tales from the Low City. But like I've been mentioning, it has been hard to get the writing done with work, and especially with also finishing Mistholme. Finishing the season was a gargantuan task. So yeah, I'm working on that. I've got like a couple episodes of that written. I'm not sure when I'll get to recording that. I'd like to have more written before I start recording. But also because my old computer died, which was a MacBook, which meant that it had GarageBand. That was what I used to compose, very loosely using that word. Music for Mistholme, but mostly for Tales from the Low City, for the atmospheric music and that sort of thing. So I've got some new synth stuff for my new computer. Haven't really worked with it before. Not really sure how that'll work. That's kind of a not quite a barrier, but it's something I'll need to work out before I get back into Low City, because I do like the synthy bed that I have in that show in the background, and I can't quite make that work yet. Okay, let me scroll back through the chat. Let's see. Ever hear the story of Crystal Skull? It's really... Oh, were there any hints, references, and implications just as had a few people picked up on? Or how many people picked up on it? So yeah, that's something. In that final episode, there is the mysterious patron, voiced by Jenna, who everyone has been like, oh, is that the guy, the curator, or is that Sally? And I was just like, I'm not necessarily surprised because it's a pretty opaque one, but hold on. I definitely was also... I was writing that to be ambiguous, and I'm never going to tell you who that was, if it was even anyone worth knowing. It might have just been a stranger who was a bit mysterious, because, you know, Mistholme. But it was also definitely... I was hoping that people would be like, wait, was that in some way the intelligence that the guide met at the end of season 5? I think 5, yeah. Because the intelligence, like in some way like an avatar of the intelligence, or maybe even like, oh, maybe the curator or Sally or something is in some way related to the intelligence. I don't know. But like the intelligence mentions, like, oh, I'm very interested in the path that you will take or something like that. And then like the words that the patron says goodbye with, and also, you know, knows the guide's true name and all that. Like, yeah, just there was definitely supposed to be an implication that there was somehow related to the intelligence as well. Yeah, so that was one where I was just like, people aren't really picking up on that. Yeah, is there a concrete definition of alternatural? No, alternatural means weird. Alternatural is just, I wanted a different word than supernatural that sounded nicer. So it's not like weird. It's an alternate version of reality, of what we think is normal. So it's alternate to the natural order, you know. So it's just like, oh, this is a bit different. It's a bit like, it's neurodiverse, but for reality. Does the guide not read as a person to the wish engine? So it wasn't. Oh yeah. So the idea with the guide not being thrown away when intruders were supposed to go away was that the guide is allowed to be there. Was just the idea that I had there. The idea was, but just that you know, because the guide is the museum, it's not an intruder for there to be a copy of it in the, even if it's not connected to the museum anymore. It's, you know, it is supposed to be there. It is not an intruder. That was what that was. That bit I knew would be a bit complex, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that whole thing, like wishes and, you know, the guide being separated into multiples again, and the negative perception zone and all that. Yeah. Yeah. That's where that came from. Okay. Sounds like yes. Alright. Any else spoilers you can give out these future projects? So I have... Yeah, I've been writing one... It's not... It is very, like, it has gone through a bunch of permutations as I'm trying to find the most interesting and the right one. I'm just writing like a... Ooh, I've just seen a spider. Spider on my wall. I have started writing, but I've really just started writing it so that I'm actually writing. Current concept for it is that it is set in a world where there is only sunlight in... It's like a fantasy setting, I guess. There's only sunlight in sunlight only falls in specific areas, and people have populated those areas, and it's nighttime everywhere else perpetually, and there's like horrors in the dark, and the protagonists are like part of one of many caravans that go around the world, like trading and that sort of thing, trading and helping transport people and that sort of thing, because they are able to travel through the night, whereas most people can't. So yeah, current title is Roads Through the Night, but that has changed so many times. So many times. Everything about this project has changed a bunch of times because it's difficult to not get bored with an idea once I've thought about it a lot. And like, there's been a couple where there was another version of it where there was going to be like alternate worlds that have collided or something, and that was just like, I've already done alternate world stuff, and also it's going to be difficult to have that come through in audio only. There was a version where it was like, oh yeah, it's the Dark Road or something like that, and then I was in a board game shop because I love board games, and then I saw a box for something called Merchants of the Dark Road, which I haven't played, but it's like, oh great, so that's, yeah, weird coincidence there, so I'm just like, maybe change the name, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm working on that. It's gone through a lot of permutations, and I've no idea when it'd be ready. And even if I do one day get it ready, that will just be ready to record, and I would need to figure out who would actually play the characters and stuff. So yeah, it is in the works. This series patron is their legal name. That would be so fitting. Yeah, just like, can you please, yes, Mix patron is my parent. Please call me mysterious. The guide said no access to the copy that was left in the wish engine. Yeah. And honestly, yeah, I'm not in love with the fact that, the battery just died on that copy of the guide, but sometimes that's just what you got to do to have internal consistency. And I did want to end the show with the wish engine being out of reach. I wanted that kind of plot thread to just be, we found this, we don't know where it came from, and then it's out of reach again. And the guide was on a phone. It was, its battery dying. It makes sense. It is and it died before they could reconnect the box. It makes perfect logical, in universe sense. It's just a bit, battery dying doesn't feel like the most interesting story, but it's just what happens sometimes. It's kind of an intentionally unsatisfying sort of thing, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and research is vanishing and stuff. That was one of those things where it was always going to happen as well. That was, I talked to Zane about it a couple of times, and it was just like, oh yeah, this is obviously what's going to happen. Even setting it up in setting up this final season's kind of theme in the end of season 5 and stuff, of it means something to try to do something good. Setting that from season 5 where the intelligence is like, there's nothing you can do to save her, and the guy just like, I'm going to try anyway. Yeah. Yeah, do we have any more questions before we wrap things up? I can talk for as long as you guys want, but yeah. And yeah, if you guys enjoy these streams, we could do this as a regular thing, but I don't know what I have to say that's interesting. I tried doing writing streams a while ago, but yeah, my writing output is too sporadic for that to be a consistently workable thing, especially these days. But yeah, and as far as the plan for the Patreon as well going forward, I have hidden the tiers above $5. So that, because there's some weird stuff, this might as well be a place to mention this. The people who are subscribed at the tiers above $5, they are still at those tiers because you can't move people down, but I don't really have anything more to offer them because there's no more episodes coming of Mistholme, and the rewards for stuff above $5 tiers was always stuff for Mistholme. So I've just hidden those tiers so that new people can't subscribe for stuff they can't get. And then, I can't delete those tiers or anything, because then those people who are still on them wouldn't have access to anything, and it would be a bit weird, but yeah. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what the plan is for the Patreon. I've never really known what to do with the Patreon very much, so I might just have a flat tier going forward, and yeah, don't know what the next shows and stuff would have on offer to be extra rewards, but yeah. If anyone has anything else to say, or to ask, was the curator's cat the whole time? The curator's cat was the curator's cat. Absolutely. The curator's cat was absolutely the curator's cat. I don't think there's anything else, so I think we'll wrap things up there. It's just about an hour. So thank you all for joining me here, and thank you all so much for listening and for supporting the show. It's meant a lot. It's been very strange. It's been very nice. Yeah, I'm planning to do more little bits for the Patreon. That is definitely, like, there will be more content coming. I'm just not sure when, and I'm not really sure what I would offer at like higher tiers or anything at this point. So yeah, just want to thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I was on a show a while ago, like the first episode of, I think it was that one where like the host was like, we were talking about like success and like, do you think it's like what it feels like and how much success, and I don't remember it, but yeah, some people like always want more success, want to explode more, and I'd love, as many people as want to listen to it, but I think that any amount of listeners has always been incredible, and I think that the amount that I have right now, that is success. An amount less would have been success, an amount more would be great. There is so many bigger shows than me, there are smaller shows than me, but this has been a great little journey. Thank you for listening. I will try not to put. I've got because I work with kids now. The school holidays actually mean something to me again, which feels very strange, but it means that I do have a couple of weeks off coming up, and I'm not doing any holiday programs this time, so I will have some time off to maybe relax a little bit and maybe do some writing, maybe learn how to use those synth programs. Who knows? Thank you very much, and as always, stay safe out there, everyone.